Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink.
Clink and drink.
And clink and drink to lovely Lilliana over there. This is the one we had a few days ago.
Yep.
That's yummy. All right, and I am your hostess with the mostess, Lady Lola Stardust. I am a third-degree high priestess of Children of the Crossroads ATC in Spokane, Washington.
And I am Lord Silent Stardust, a third-degree high priest here in Spokane, Washington for Children of the Crossroads ATC.
Yeah, nice. That was a mouthful. Sometimes we're known as the Stardustes, but that's another story. And we've been on a tiny little break for the holidays, and we had some kids sick and all the things. I think we 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
2 or 3 weeks we've been off.
Yeah, but we are back and we are going strong. So we're really excited to be back. We're excited. Our first guest for this time back. We're really excited to have her. But before we talk about that, I always like to do our little disclaimer. So it's been brought to our attention that some people don't like to learn about witchcraft or hear it talked about or whatever. When people are drinking wine, they're like, that's not very professional. You'll get kind of tipsy. How do we know that you know what you're talking about if you're slurring your words? And I get it, even though wine is in the title. But you know what? You have the power. If you don't like it, you can click on the X in the corner and we disappear.
Boom, we're gone.
We're
it's
gone.
Like magic.
It's magic. Yeah, the X. Yeah. Wait. I do this just in case. So. What is this? Hey, it's Ian from Total Wine. We used to work together. Do you know who that is?
Yes, I remember Ian from a few years ago.
Yay. Hi. That's awesome. All right. So before we get to our lovely guest, and I'm so excited about this, I'm going to turn this over to my high priest, my partner in crime, my love, my life, my everything. We're going to turn this over to Silenus. Why don't you tell us about the wine tonight?
I will. Thank you. So tonight we are drinking Le Buissons Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a Bordeaux grown cab out of the Entre deux Mers region of France. So this Entre deux Mers means between the seas. And it is one of the largest communes of Bordeaux. For the reason it's generally Merlot based, but this one has a cab from there. So excellent. 91 points on the rating for it, and only $12 to $15 a bottle. So a really nice steal of a bottle for price and flavor. Flavor wise, lots of dark fruits. We got black currant. We have some black plum, a little blackberry, and then you have a little bit of herbal sage undernotes.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
That's it.
Yes, it is.
It's kind of earthy.
Yep. It's got a little herbaceousness underneath.
Herbaceous. I like that.
Yep. And like I said, a steal of a bottle, $12, $15. Definitely have your eyes out on the look for it. So.
And that's a good deal these days.
Yeah, it's great.
You don't see 91
anything for $12. What? Yeah. From the grocery store?
I know. Well, he always knows the good deals if you ever want to know. And he's actually cataloging all the wines with the different guests we've had over the years, the different wines. And we don't know what we're going to do with that, but we want to do something with it. So we're kind of thinking of, I don't know, a witches and wine wine list or something. I don't know, just something kind of cool, so I'm excited about that. So, all right, I'm very excited. This guest is someone that we've had on before. We have had the joy and pleasure of meeting her in person and doing all sorts of fun things with her online. I want to welcome the lovely Lilliana Blackstar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I am so glad to be here. My name is Lilliana Blackstar, and I am a second-degree priestess of the ATC Wise tradition and the maiden of the Evergreen Hearth in Centralia, Washington. And I am a professional astrologer. It's my passion to talk about astrology, and I'm also really into tarot. And my website is hestiasmuse.net. And I also am the director of Spiritual Professionals Association, which was previously known as Seattle Psychics Association. And we have changed the name to reflect that we're not just in Seattle and we're not just for psychics. We are a nonprofit certification and business development association for anyone who works as a spiritual advisor.
I love that.
In the spiritual world, Reiki, tarot, astrology, all of that stuff. And we are working on a relaunch for 2025. So we're hoping to be up and have a big relaunch with SPA in the beginning of 2025 and bring it back with the new name.
Nice. I love that. That was was ran by Namer.
Namer was the previous director, and she's passed that role on to me, and I'm taking it on and hoping to see what happens and hope that it's exciting.
That is awesome. I love all the things that you guys are doing to promote your magical folks that bring all sorts of knowledge.
Support your fellow pagans.
Support your fellow pagans, people. Support them. So we want to talk about, well, first of all, Lilliana is self-taught. So she is an amazing astrologer. If you ever want to get in contact with her, you can reach her at hestiasmuse.net. She's amazing. Like you would think this lady's been doing this for forever, like years and like 20, 30, 40 years. But she has been, how long have you been studying and doing astrology?
Well, I guess I was kind of casually studying astrology along with, witchcraft and tarot through the early and mid 2000s and stuff. But then I really got serious about studying astrology not until 2017.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I remember you saying that and I was like, oh my gosh, like I just thought that you had been doing this since birth. But yeah, I love
it. That. Thank you.
She's amazing. Yes, check her out. And you can also see her on TikTok, and she has a lot of really cool videos. That's where I get a lot of my information is her TikTok under Lilliana Blackstar. And it's just amazing. I'm always referring to her. I get when I have my Discord channel, and I will always give her credit. I'll be like, I got this from Hestia's Muse, and just put a little blurb because it is always so right on, spot on, well done. And yeah, I highly suggest if you guys want to check it out, do it because it's amazing.
I do post on Facebook, Instagram. I'm a little bit on Threads and Blue Sky, and the TikTok. Sometimes I go on a streak where I'm posting a lot, and then sometimes I don't. So if you don't see a lot from me, I'm just taking a break.
Yeah, that's kind of us too. We have a Coven TikTok, and sometimes I post a lot, and then there's times when I'm like, we'll see.
Yeah, especially like during Mercury retrograde, I'm like, I am not gonna.
Right, I know.
I haven't been posting at all during this Mercury retrograde on TikTok, but I still there's pretty regular updates going out on my Facebook and Instagram for Hestia's Muse. So
I love that. So let's get to it. So there were so many things we could have talked about, and she was like, well, you want to talk about this? And I was like, all of it. She's like, okay, that might take 3 hours. So we decided I want to learn about aspects of the birth chart. And we will be using my birth chart here pretty soon. We'll get to that as an example. I'm kind of excited about it, but I'm going to share this first image, and it is these are the aspects, correct?
This is and this is where people go, what the heck am I looking at? I don't understand. When you pull up your wheel chart, and you have planets, and then you have all these lines going all the way across and zigzag across your chart, and those lines across the middle of the chart represent the aspects. And this is where we're getting into sky math, because the aspects are about the distance between the planets in the circle. So if the circle's divided into 360 degrees, then when two planets interact, they make an angle with each other. They're either directly across from each other, and that's in the very middle of your screen going up and down. We have an opposition.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, or they're right next to each other, so it's a conjunction. So they're in the same place. They're in a conjunction. There won't be a line. It'll just be the two planets right really close to each other.
Okay.
Or the opposition when they're directly across from each other. So they've cut the 360-degree circle in half. So that's, I can't do the math in my head. However many degrees apart.
180.
180 degrees. That's what I was trying to think of. 180 degrees apart from each other, give or take.
Yeah.
You know, you can allow a little bit leeway on either side of that 180 degrees for the opposition. You're going to have trines when they are, it is this green one here. Does it say how many degrees apart it is on this list? No.
But the triangle, the green triangle.
Yes. I think it's 80.
They're 120 apart from each other.
120. That's right.
He's a math
120 degrees.
I'm
sorry. I say like, you know, sky math. Oh yeah, it's great. I'm not a math person, but I look at charts all day and can
I'm here to help you with the math part. You can tell me everything else, but I can tell you the numbers.
He'll tell you the math.
Cool. I appreciate that so much.
Can I ask
aspects?
Can I ask real quick, what are these shapes for? So there's squares, there's
that's gonna kind of tell you what it's the symbol for the name of the aspect.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's right there.
The trine is represented by a triangle.
Yep.
Because if you have 3 trines connected, they'll make a triangle across the chart.
Yeah, and then conjunction. Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. So that's what all this is. I didn't know these were called aspects. I was when I said, yeah, we'll talk about aspects, and I'm thinking in my head, I don't know what they are, but let's find out. But now I know they're called aspects. Okay.
We love it, and I'm going to show you exactly what aspect in your chart is responsible for that when we talk about it.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know what it is, but okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we have squares when they are at whatever number that is. Oh my goodness.
90 degrees?
90 degrees, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know these. I do.
It's okay.
But I do on the spot right now, and I'm like, oh no, and it's Mercury retrograde. Okay, so there's just a variety of different angles that planets make to each other across the wheel.
Now let me ask you, when they are relating to each other in these angles, right? Mm-hmm. They could be trying to each other, they could be conjunction, whatever. You look at what those planets are, and then you're gonna figure out what their characteristics are. It's like people, right? It's like
yeah. And that's what I'm getting into is this the planets that kind of are going to represent like the different energies that are available in your persona. People are very complex being. We're not one-dimensional. We're many-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And so you have like an inner Mercury, that's how you think and analyze and learn, but you have your inner moon, that's how you feel and relate and your moods, right?
Yeah.
And these two parts of yourself are not necessarily always aligned.
Yeah.
And you have a part of yourself that is, Venus is about what you're attracted to and what you're craving. And your Mars is about like your drives and your passions and your motivations. These things are not always necessarily on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. And so we have a very complex inner world. Mm-hmm. And the aspects in the chart can help us break down astrologically how these different parts of the self are interacting with each other, and it's going to be either harmonious or challenging. Depending on what kind of aspect it is. So if you go to the next slide,
let me and it's going to take me a little time here, people.
No problem.
But what I want to while I'm pulling that up, it's kind of like you start with the simple, like, a person, like you start with, what is your sun sign? Okay, Capricorn. All right. So you're organized and you think you're right all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that because I'm a Capricorn and so is Lilliana.
Yes.
And then you break it down. Okay, so that's just one part of you. What is, and you kind of get deeper and deeper and it's as you get deeper, you're actually getting wider and wider on the chart because it gets really complex. And so that's to me, that's amazing that it just kind of like you can get those basics, but then now let's break it down, and that's what the aspects are, right? That's just kind of like
what it's another level. Like if you're just in the very beginning of learning astrology, I would say don't try to worry about the aspects right away.
Yeah.
Start with learning about just the planets in the signs. So you have the sun in Capricorn and you have moon in Pisces, and you just want to understand what those mean. Find your Mercury and find out what sign it's in. Find your Mars and find out what sign it's in. Just learn about that.
Yeah.
And then you take another step further and you start learning about the houses that they're in. And you blend the concept of the houses with the signs. So you have your Capricorn sun, but it's going to be a little bit different based on what house it's in, right? So you start blending, you slowly blend this in. But if you're trying to learn it all at once, it's all very confusing. So you got to take it piece by piece, a little at a time. And when you feel like you have a good grasp on one concept, then you move to the next one and start integrating. And so when you've got a good grasp of all of the planets and signs in your chart, that's when you can look at the aspects, because the aspects are how those planets and signs in your chart talk to each other.
Yeah. And so you say like, like do the basics and then learn the houses, and then, spread out to your aspects. And this is fascinating to me because I've always wondered, what the heck does it mean when it's trine? What the heck does it mean when it's square? So you can go down this list.
We have this inner, network of different parts of ourself, and they're all like working on different projects, or they have different goals. Like my intellectual side has different goals than my emotional side, and my Venus craves different things than my sun or moon does. But I'm one person, so eventually these have to find a compromise and work together in some way, or I'm camped out in the mental hospital, right? So it's kind of like, I'll see it sometimes when I look at a chart. I'll go, okay, these two planets are on a phone call to each other, and they're either arguing or they're giving each other high fives and like hyping each other up.
Yeah.
Based on what that aspect is. So first of all, we have a conjunction. Like I said before, that's when planets are very close to each other. They're not just in the same sign, but they're like usually within 10 degrees of one another within that sign.
Okay.
So they're not only in the same sign, but they're in the same sector of the sign. They're right next to each other. So this is you driving the car and the person in the seat right next to you.
Okay.
Like you're going to the same place, you have the same goals, you're working on the same thing. But then depending on what planets are involved, there's just they're influencing each other very strongly because there's two planets connecting and in the same place. So generally this is a harmonious blend between those two planets. They're working together. Depending on what planets it is, that can be a good thing or that can be a bad thing, right? A conjunction of the moon with Venus is going to be like, oh, you just like your emotions and your desires are very aligned. So it's very easy to just, maybe what you want, or your emotions are very driven by your desires. That can also maybe be not a good thing, because now if you're too emotionally driven by your desires, you're prone to addictive behaviors or
like you just
overindulgence, right?
So what if, like, I know that would this have anything to do with a conjunction of planets? Like does it, like you said, if your moon and Venus are right next to each other, does it depend also on where your moon and Venus are in your astrological. So
but
like
they're both doing in your chart in particular, I believe you have a Moon and Venus conjunction in the sign of Pisces.
Yes, she does.
So much.
I think I looked at your chart earlier, but I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I'm pretty sure that's what I was looking at. And so your desires and your emotions are very aligned, but they're both in the sign of Pisces. So there's maybe a little bit of delusion going on there.
What?
There's a attraction to fantasy and the desire for escapism.
What?
So everyone,
but there's also you're going to be very empathic, very intuitive, very connected.
Yes.
Potentially very psychic, especially with your romantic partners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if your partners feel like, how the heck did you just read my mind right now?
Oh, I just know people.
Yeah, because Venus is related to, our partnerships and how we connect with people.
Yeah.
And then the moon is also like our moods and emotions, and also very intuitive. And these are both in Pisces together. So there's, they're working together. They're doing, so there's this.
But Venus they're kind of like the buddies that like, hey, let's go escape somewhere and talk about our emotions and maybe not get back to work in time or get back to reality because we're having such a good time. So like
if we knew the concept of the angel and the devil, it's the devil and the devil.
A little bit. Oh gosh! All right, I'm the one that volunteered my birth chart. So
you did. We're gonna bare your soul to the internet tonight.
This episode, we could rename it as "Called Out."
Called out, yeah.
Yes. I will drink to that. We're gonna call it out.
Clink and drink. Called out. Yeah, Jesus. So now you've got opposition.
I'll try to balance it with nice things about you too, but.
There's lots of those too.
I'm amazing, so
you are.
I'm okay with that.
But you can see how a conjunction might be different if there was different planets. If you had a Moon and Saturn conjunction, or a Moon and Mars conjunction, it would be a different thing going on than with a Moon and Venus conjunction, right? So the nature of the two planets that are doing the thing together, and then you combine it with the sign that they're in and the house that they're in. And so there's a lot of layers that goes into the interpretation. And part of it is knowing all of the bits and pieces. And part of it is intuitive.
Yeah.
Like with tarot, you learn the meanings of the cards. And you know the placement in the spread. But there's still a level of intuitiveness and connecting with the person that you're reading with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So let's get to the other. You got opposition.
Yeah. So the opposite of a conjunction is an opposition. If the conjunction is two planets working together in the same sign, the opposition is two planets that are opposing each other from opposite signs.
Mm-hmm.
One's on the other side of the chart in the opposite sign. All of the signs have an opposite sign.
Yeah.
And those opposite signs are really two sides of the same coin. They have a lot of similarities, but they have a lot of differences. So it's like when you have two people that maybe have the same goals, but they have very distinctly different ways of wanting to go about those goals.
Yeah.
Right. And so the opposition creates tension. It's a difficult aspect. It's dynamic because it creates tension, and tension creates like the need for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the opposition is usually, there's usually something to be learned from an opposition. If you have an opposition in your birth chart, then it is these two sides, these two planets are parts of yourself that you will really benefit and flourish if you learn to have them work together.
Yeah.
And if you find a way to integrate those two signs so that you are doing both and not neglecting one or overemphasizing the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then you'll have a life out of balance, right?
Yep. And we're all about balance, aren't we?
Right.
We try.
So the oppositions bring a dynamic tension, and there's like I said before, there's good and there's bad that can come from that. It's there's an inner conflict. You have two different ideas. You don't know which one is most important. You have two different drives and you don't know which one to focus on. It can create some tension, but that tension really generally inspires us to problem solve and integrate and take action and do something in our lives.
Is that also similar to just our basic sun signs have opposites? So like I know as Capricorn, our opposite is Cancer.
Yeah.
And
you
so
have a lot to learn from your opposite signs, even if you don't have planets in those opposite signs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like your Pisces moon needs to learn from Virgo.
Yes.
And Virgo needs to learn from Pisces.
Yes.
Capricorn needs to learn from Cancer, even if you don't have any planets in opposition to that in your birth chart.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of opportunities through transits or through interacting with other people or just through self-reflection to learn about those opposite energies and what we need to integrate. We need that balance. Capricorn really needs that Cancer energy.
Yes.
So that we aren't workaholics that spend all our time working and never spending any time with our family, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so then the next one on this list here is the trines. These are the 120 degrees. This is generally a harmonious aspect between two signs that are usually going to be in the same element. So Pisces is a water sign. It's going to make trine aspects with planets that are in Cancer and in Scorpio.
Okay, so
those are water signs too.
Are those, is that, okay, so if you have a triangle on your chart, does everyone have a trine?
Okay, so there's trines will just be one blue line that has a little triangle in the middle of it to indicate it's a trine. Okay. If you have three blue lines that connect and make a big triangle, that's a grand trine.
Okay.
Because that means you have three trines that are connected.
Oh, wow. Okay. Holy crap.
So that's like when we get into another step with your aspects is there are aspect patterns. When aspects connect with each other and make a specific pattern, then that also has additional meaning added to it's like those aspects are now a part of a family of aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's more than just two planets involved because there's another aspect or maybe three aspects involved. And so that gets maybe a little more complex.
Yeah.
For this conversation starting out. But that's one thing that you will eventually get to when you start learning about aspects is after you learn about the individual aspects, you have aspect patterns. So what you're talking about is like if you had planets that are in, say, Pisces and Cancer and Scorpio, and they're all in like the early degrees. Say they were all around 5 degrees of each sign.
Okay.
Then you would have this big triangle because one would be trining this way and one's trining this way. And then they're all connected. And so one planet's making two trines this way and the other one's making two trines this way.
Okay.
And so you have then what's called a grand trine, and that would be 3 or more planets working in a really flowing, harmonious way together.
And is trine always the same elements?
The only time it's not is if the planets involved are at the cusp, when they're at the very edge of a sign.
Okay.
And if you're allowing, like we said, like, you know, it's 120 degrees apart, give or take.
Yeah.
It says 8 degrees is
give or take, and it says 8 degrees next to it. So generally, we're going to allow a 8-degree orb of influence around that trine, depending on what planets. Again,
it's really a 16.
And so you could have a trine that is out of element where one is at the very end of one sign and the very beginning of the other sign. So they're not in the same element, but they're really close, because one is about to go into the same element, but it's not quite there yet. It's getting ready to go into that same element, or it has just left that same element, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's really close.
Right.
Most of the time, it's going to be by the same element. And if they are in different elements, then you're going to recognize that this is a trine, but it's an out of element trine.
Okay.
So those two planets are still working together, but they're not quite as harmonious as if they were in the same element.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right. They're like wanting to work together, but they're maybe not quite as easy flowing as if they were in the same element together.
It's like if you're adding water and earth together, you get mud. Not really one, not really the other.
Yeah.
And then you have the square.
Yes. So the squares are when they are 90 degrees apart from each other. You're going to have a big red line making a 90-degree angle between some signs. And this is going to be when they're in the same modality, but different elements. So the modalities are the cardinal, the fixed, or the mutable.
Yeah.
So if two planets are both in the early degrees of like cardinal signs, then, but one is a cardinal water sign and one is a cardinal air sign.
Yeah.
So the cardinal signs are the leaders, they're the bosses, they want to be taking charge. But one planet says, we're going to do it the water way. And one says, no, we're going to do it the air way. And this is when I say the two planets are like yelling at each other over the phone.
Okay.
Like, they're like, what are you doing over there? Knock it off. And the other one's like, no, this is the way that we're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a work email contest. Per my previous email.
Yes. My previous email, you know what the plan is. Well, no, we're doing it this way. So this is an aspect that is a difficult, and there is tension again, similar to the opposition energy. And as with the opposition, there is benefits here when you can learn to find the compromise.
Okay.
These two signs need to learn and planets need to learn how to compromise with each other. Yeah. There's usually something that they do hold in common. And they, we're talking about different complex parts of our own psyche here. So hopefully, like, your psyche's not so fractured that you can't find a compromise, right? Yeah.
And that, if it is, then that's a whole different different discussion.
Well, those are different degrees we need to deal with.
But this can create those moments when you just really don't know what you want, or you can't decide what to do, or you make a choice and it doesn't quite feel right because it doesn't satisfy all parts of you. Some part of you wanted to do something different, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
So there's the squares, and as I said, they're difficult and dynamic and challenging, but there is like a lot of growth and lessons that can come from learning to find the compromise.
Yeah. And then
those are the main like aspects that I would look at in a chart. Primarily when I'm doing a reading with someone, I look at conjunctions, oppositions, trines, and squares.
Okay.
And if we have time and if something else is really standing out that's one of these other aspects, then I'll get into it. But usually you can get a lot just from those. Those are like the main aspects that are going to influence someone. The other ones in there are like, they still influence us, but it's like less potent.
Yeah.
It's like the flavor on there is just a little bit of extra sauce.
Yeah. So there's these other aspects, and we can look at those if you want to. There's the sextiles and the inconjuncts and all of these other things that get a little bit like, they're not as distinctly good or bad. They're a little bit
seasoning.
Yeah.
They're the seasoning. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's Lola's chart.
It's my chart. Look at that. I'm like, yeah, this is all fine and dandy. Now, how do I? Talk about me?
Talk about me.
This is the Leo coming out, the Leo rising.
So, as I said before, Lola, you've spent a lot of time looking at just the basics of your chart, so you know like what your sun and moon and rising are, and a little bit about where the other planets are and the signs that they're in and the houses that they're in. And so then the next step beyond that is we start looking at those lines that go crisscross across the middle.
Yeah,
So I want to ask you, what stands out to you the most when you're first looking at this?
Well, this obviously this big blue line I'm looking at is that's the triangle right there. Can you see my
Yes.
That's the trine.
Somewhat of a trine. Yeah. Notice in my software, the darker and thicker a line is, then that means that those planets are closer to the exact degree. Whereas so we talked about like some give and take around the aspects, right? Mm-hmm. The closer they are to that exact degree, the stronger the aspect.
Okay, so what is this?
The farther apart, it'll be a little weaker because it's either just starting to come into the aspect or it's just leaving being in that aspect, right?
Okay.
Yep. So those other lines are really light because those are either just exiting from the aspect or very, very beginning of the aspect coming into play.
Okay. So what does this mean then? This strong.
So then, yes, that is a trine aspect between your sun in Capricorn and Saturn in Taurus.
Oh, Jesus.
Right.
That's just a lot of stubborn.
Right. It is, but it's a trine, so it's harmonious because Saturn loves Capricorn. Saturn is the boss of Capricorn.
Heck yeah.
Taurus loves Capricorn because they're both earth signs.
Yep. So they work.
The aspect is pretty close because if you zoom in a little bit there, the Saturn's at 29 degrees and your sun is at 28 degrees.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
See the numbers next. You can see how close that aspect is to being exact. Yeah. Like the next day, the sun is going to go into 29 degrees Capricorn and this aspect will be exact.
Oh,
because
wow.
The sun moves 1 degree per day.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So that's really,
it's really close. It's only 1 day away from an exact trine with Saturn. So Saturn is already the ruler of Capricorn.
Yeah.
And so you're already deeply influenced by Saturn, even if it was not in aspect.
Yeah.
But now, since it is in an aspect and in a harmonious trine aspect from the earthy Taurus, now we're seeing like, okay, there's a lot of Saturn influence here.
Okay.
And so, but we have to go, okay, it's Saturn in Taurus though. So it's a little bit different than how Saturn would behave if it was in Capricorn.
Yeah.
Because Taurus
is more luxury things stuff. Yeah.
Capricorn is like, both Taurus and Capricorn are really hard workers. But they might have different reasons for their hard work.
Yeah.
Capricorn is looking long-term goals and like building for the future. And maybe you want to like make sure you have a big savings account to pass on to your kids.
Yeah.
Right. It's about creating a legacy. It's about like building a strong future, maybe working your way up the ladder of achievement so that you have this really strong legacy that you leave behind. Or are we back?
Yeah, okay, we're back.
I lost connection for a second.
Yeah, we still understood what you were saying. The climbing the ladder.
All right. Whereas Taurus's reason for working hard is because you want to buy some wine and you want to buy the really nice like cozy blanket for your bed, and you want to go out to the concerts or the art shows, or like indulge in the pleasures of life.
Yes.
But Taurus understands we can't indulge in the pleasures of life without the resources.
Yep.
And so Taurus is concerned with security and like stability, because it wants to get like long-term access to the pleasant sides of life. I can work a temp job and be able to go to one concert, or I can work a full-time job and save my money and go to 3 or 4 concerts in a year.
Or go to the big 3-day festival concert.
Right, or go to the big 3-day festival. And so there's this sustainability and long-term desire for Taurus is more focused on like, how can I sustain and make my access to all of the good things in life like extended and last longer.
Yeah.
Whereas Capricorn might be like, well, it's not even about me, it's for future generations or my kids. Or about like the legacy that I build. I'm going to create a huge company, and that'll be something that lives on beyond me.
Yeah. That makes so much. That makes so much sense. I want to ask, and I don't mean to rush you, but we could go on and on. But
yeah,
for days.
Where's the opposition on here? I want to see what the opposite. Is there an opposition?
Well, it's not showing one because you don't have a planet that's in an exact opposition.
Oh, okay.
So like there's.
So not everyone's going to have
oppositions or
right, like I said, like you, Capricorn is opposed by Cancer, but you don't have any planets in Cancer. You still need to learn from Cancer, and you can still look at what house Cancer is in to understand some of those lessons. You can go, Cancer's ruled by the moon, so the moon is going to teach me some Cancer lessons, and your moon is in Pisces.
Yeah. And so then the conjunction you were talking about is right next to it. Is that's
right over there is a conjunction there with your North Node.
Oh, okay.
But it is out of sign.
Yeah.
Remember, we talked about that being out of sign because your North Node is in Aquarius and your Sun is still in Capricorn. It's heading towards that, but they're not quite doing the same thing yet.
So you have one right there.
But then this Moon and Venus up here are in the same sign conjunction, and they're really close together. They're only like 2 degrees apart from each other.
And they're
2 degrees right there.
Oh, and they're in, and this is Pisces.
And that's Pisces. So that's when I was talking about like the Moon and Venus conjunction in Pisces. You're really doing this thing together.
And there's one right here too, right?
Yeah, there's a conjunction between Chiron and Mars. That's going to be pretty challenging because both of those are challenging planets.
And they're in what?
And they're in the sign of Aries.
Of course they are.
So this is confidence and maybe like acting too impulsively. And
he wants to know if it's how I fight.
Yeah, it's how you fight. And so Chiron is a woundedness and Mars is like combative. And so there's something here. Do you
go ahead, ask. Go ahead and ask.
Do you have an experience of like feeling like when you stand up for yourself and assert yourself, it backfires or in some way like makes you feel like you too vulnerable, too far, now I'm hurt, I'm never going to do that again?
Yeah, that I do go too far.
Okay.
And then I'm known to go too far, and then
or too impulsive.
It's impulsive. Like I'm gonna say what the first thing, and I can be very impulsive with.
And then
how I argue. And then I pull back. I regret.
Right, and then you hurt yourself in some way, and so then there's a hesitation to do that. until the impulse builds up that it's so strong that you just do it anyways.
Can I give you a perfect example? The
Sure.
jar. So we're going to just expose a little bit about our marriage sometime. This was a long time ago, but I can be very temperamental and a little throw fits.
What?
And yeah. And so I was really mad at my husband for good reason, but we won't go into that. And I couldn't get him to listen to me. So I threw a jar, like where we hold our marijuana, but it was empty. And it's a big jar, and I threw it at him. He dodged it. It bounced off the wall and landed on my foot, and I got a big old bruised, swollen foot. I feel like this is the perfect.
That's what I'm saying. You impulsively assert your anger, and instead of it like proving your point or getting your way, it hurt you worse than it hurt anyone else.
Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense. Oh, just stop. All right. So that conjunction explains a lot. I
want to look at this red line that's a square.
Okay, yes.
Right here. Yeah, that thick red one that's going from your moon and Venus down to Neptune.
Yep.
Okay, I see that. Yeah.
Because this one's some tricky stuff here. Like Neptune in Sagittarius. Neptune is the subconscious.
Yes.
And Neptune is also like how we connect with spirit and dream and our imagination, our ability to like imagine all these different outcomes, and that can be good or bad, right? We can imagine the absolute most beautiful thing, or we can imagine the most horrible worst case scenario.
What?
And so that's why it's related to the subconscious, because that's like our dreams are either our subconscious mind creating this nightmare or this really pleasant dream, right?
Yes.
But we do that when we're awake too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we sit there and we think about, this is like, oh, I want to go on this vacation, and here's all the beautiful things that we're going to do, and it's going to be so much fun. And I mentioned vacation because Sagittarius loves to travel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But then there's something else that goes, but what if there's a plane crash?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? And there's this like, oh no, like
I think of all we call it catastrophizing, and I catastrophize, and I get stressed out when we go travel. I'm very stressed out because I love the travel and I love the road trip, but I'm always like, what if we don't have this? What if we don't? Oh my God. Like,
I'm a really anxious traveler too. And I also have Neptune in Sagittarius.
So you,
but yours is like having that square aspect with the moon, and that moon and Venus that we talked about before is very intuitive, very empathic, very like in tune to your emotions and your moods. But as soon as that mood turns to anxiety, it's going to trigger that Neptune to go too far and think of all of the terrible things that are going to happen.
About 5 hours ago.
Right. Or the other thing can happen is if the moon is getting like very hopeful, in a very pleasant mood, and Venus is like thinking of all the good things, then that can trigger the Neptune to go the opposite direction. And instead of catastrophizing, you're now like almost like delusionally like, oh, nothing can go wrong, it's totally fine.
Illusions of grandeur kind of thing.
Delusions of grandeur, or like just not seeing the clear picture, not seeing things as they really are. Neptune can be a place in our chart where we get very like disconnected from reality.
It's amazing to me that just this line right here says so much about an aspect of us that we wouldn't even look twice at, but it makes so much sense. I love that. That's amazing.
And you notice it due to the thickness and the brightness of the color? Is that why you really notice that square?
Yeah, because it is, again, they're very close to exact.
36,
Neptune's at 4 degrees.
And 4 degrees.
And Venus is at 3
degrees. Yeah.
And the moon is at 1. So they're all within 4 degrees of an orb of each other, 3 degrees of an orb of each other.
Okay.
What is that?
An orb is like a word for a degree.
A degree. Okay.
And so we want a close orb for aspects. And if it has a wide orb, then we go, it might come into play sometimes, but not all the time.
But if it's a
close orb,
it's going to play off.
Then that's really prominent. It's very strong.
Can I ask real quick what this green line is?
Yeah, it goes from the moon to it
goes from the moon to Pluto.
Pluto, okay.
Oh, geez. Yes. And what is that?
So
that is an inconjunct, also known as a quincunx. It's Quincunx. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But another word for it is an inconjunct. It's 30 degrees away from the opposition. So there would have been an opposition when Pluto was at 1 degrees Virgo, at the top of that sign of Virgo. But it has just left Virgo and it's at 1 degree of Libra. So it's exactly in the very next sign, 30 degrees away from where it would have had the opposition.
I see. Okay.
So you get 2 of these. You get one on one side of the opposition and one on the other side of the opposition. If you as the planets move around. And so generally it's not as strong as squares and trines and oppositions and stuff, but this one is pretty strong because it's the moon. And because it's a very close to exact degree orb.
And
what does that mean? There is some kind of challenge there between the moon and Pluto. Like the moon, your moon sign needs to learn something from Pluto in Libra. This can be something that sometimes that learning is very easy and sometimes it's hard because the inconjunct is kind of a neutral aspect. So sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's harmonious. And so it's neutral, but that doesn't mean that it's always like non-existent. It just means sometimes it's challenging like a square and sometimes it's gonna be more like harmonious like a trine, and so there's this relationship with your moon and Pluto that is kind of this back and forth. Sometimes there's good lessons coming in and sometimes it's really not good. And so looking into learning about your Pluto sign,
Pluto,
and thinking about how that specifically relates to your moon, so your moods, your emotions, your intuition, and whether there is like a connection or a disconnect between those 2 parts of yourself.
It just screams angst to me.
Yeah, Pluto is tough because Pluto is very angsty. Pluto is the dark night of the soul. Pluto is your shadow work. Pluto is catastrophe. Pluto is the not great things that happen to us, but they deeply shape us. Right? And they deeply influence and change us for one way or the other. But they're not necessarily easy or pleasant all the time.
It's my love for shadow work and my love for challenges because I always know I'll come out on the other side.
And that might be part of that aspect is your moon knows that there's something there. Your moon knows that there's a treasure. Pluto has a treasure in it. But you're going to have to dig through the murky, muddy yuck to get to it. And the moon in Pisces probably appreciates that, like, there's a treasure there. It's not going to be always fun to go get it, but let's go
get
around in the muck.
Did you hear me say it's angsty?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a little angsty. I'm a little gothy. I'm a little
emo.
A little emo. Yeah. I love tragic love stories. So Wuthering Heights, Romeo and Juliet, Jane Eyre. Like if it's tragic, right? I'm like, oh,
that's really
Dangerous
like
liaisons.
the Libra. Pluto in Libra is all like you know how there's like so many like Harlequin tragic like romance novels.
Yeah.
So many of those were published when Pluto was in Libra.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
like
amazing.
Libra is the romantic and relationship sign. And Pluto came through there and was like, yes, romance, but let's make it dark and tragic. Everyone bought those books up.
It's my favorite genre of movies. It's the gothic romances, the
tragic love stories.
I freaking love it. I love it. And I kind of long for it in my life. Like the more the more you can't have me, the more you'll want me. Like it's just this whole
there's that Delulu Neptune again.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, so we are at 5 till we could go on about this. I would love you to come back and we'll talk more about deeper stuff. I really appreciate you doing this. Real quick, you are in the process of getting something published.
Yes. So I am starting to write books because for years everyone's been yelling at me like, have so much knowledge, you need to put it into a book. So I'm starting a series of books that's going to be about the connection between tarot and astrology.
Yes.
And those are going to be published through Wicca Press, which is the publishing house of the ATC.
Yeah.
The first one has been submitted to the publisher. And then the second one I'm sort of starting to work on.
Oh, wow.
We'll see. The first one has been submitted. Namir is making the cover art for me. Namir Laveau has been a guest on your show before.
Absolutely,
yeah. So I'm really excited about that. I don't yet have a date of when it's coming out, but if you follow me on social media or sign up for my Patreon, you can bet I will be talking about it everywhere
broadcasting
when it's ready to come out.
Can I ask you a quick question? I'm fascinated with the conjunction of the Venus, Pisces, and what was the other one?
The moon.
Venus and the moon in the sign of Pisces. Yeah.
What tarot card would that be?
Oh, okay. So the Pisces tarot card is the moon.
Yeah.
And the moon tarot card is the High Priestess.
Okay.
And the Venus tarot card is the Empress.
Ooh.
So you have the moon and the Empress and the High Priestess hanging out together.
I like that.
And then they're in the early degrees of Pisces, which is going to be the 8 of Cups.
Okay. I love that.
And so then you can look at kind of the combination of those 4 cards and maybe tell a story through tarot about this part of your chart.
I love that. I'm going to remember that. The moon, the High Priestess, the Empress and the 8 of Cups.
8 of Cups.
I'm gonna do some research and see how that.
And guess what? Yeah. We have this recorded, so we can watch it.
Oh, I can watch back on it. This is what wine does.
Yes. If anyone in the audience is interested in having a reading with me where I can sit down and do with you like I just did with Lola tonight, except for we can take a full hour and really go into it, then you can contact me through my website, hestiasmuse.net, or you can find me on Facebook, Hestia's Muse, Instagram, hestiasmuse.astrology, email me, hestiasmuse@gmail.com, and we will set up I do video chat readings. So we just go on video like this. I show you the chart and we just do what I just did with Lola, except
more in depth. Yeah, more in depth. This was a condensed version for time.
Yes, this was a little quick mini reading. I'm so happy I was able to do that for you, though. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Explained so much about things that I just have always kind of wondered about, and I you're amazing. Well, we're going to do our little spiel here. So thank you so much, Lilliana. And if you in the audience are, first of all, we are a nonprofit. Our coven is nonprofit. We do a lot of community work. You will see a lot of our public Beltanes, and our coven actually is going to be doing much more public stuff as the weather gets better. Right now, we are doing online public rituals. We were supposed to have one tonight, but because I feel like I'm coming down with something, we rescheduled it to Thursday, full moon in Gemini. And you'll hear all about that. But you can donate to us. We have a PayPal, and our PayPal is easy. It's basically PayPal me, COTC ATC. COTC ATC. Children of the Crossroads ATC. And we have a Venmo, and guess what? It's the same. Venmo.com COTC ATC. We appreciate the donations. They're not required, but they are appreciated. And if you have any questions or suggestions, if you'd like to be a guest on our show. Oh, by the way, we're doing double Witches and Wine this week.
Yeah, we have a 2 episode week.
Yeah, this Friday we have Lord Alexian on, and we're very excited about that. And he's going to do some music, and so I'm very excited.
I love Lord Alexian. That'll be fun.
This is his second time on our show, so I'm very excited. But if you have any questions, if you are like, hey, why do you guys do what you do? Or, hey, have you tried this wine? Or, hey, how about this topic? Please email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
And thank you, everyone. Lilliana, you are so freaking awesome. I love you so much.
I learned so much tonight, just on that little bit. Like, that was a tasting, but now I want more.
I want more. And if you want more, go to Hestia's Muse. She will give you more. So everyone, please be so wonderfully kind to each other and always walk with the goddess. And until next time, blessed be. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you guys Friday, hopefully.